As I stared at the PDA in front of me and tried not to think about the sheer size of the subway transit bill I was running up, I contemplated going ahead with the triple cross against Gessler. Didn't have much of a choice. Both Rook and Gessler thought I was working for them, and well, I needed to get paid one way or the other. It was time anyway. TX Fabrication, Lyle Street, Rook's prototype, of course. Gessler didn't know it was really Rook's prototype, but hey, he wasn't going to ask, I wasn't going to tell him. Unfortunately, there was a black suit professional. These guys were the elite of the elite. They didn't make mistakes, they didn't screw up, and unfortunately, they had night vision in those shades of theirs. Why they wore them during the day, I had no idea, but that wasn't really a concern. At this point, my options were limited. The prototype itself was on the top floor, that was the easy bit. The problem was going to be getting there with all the professionals and enforcers between me and them. The other problem was the guard covering my exit route. I need to distract him somehow. Crosslink view didn't give me many options to start with. I figured I was going to have to go up and smash in an option, certainly take down the guard behind me. Hopefully I could get past the enforcer on the top floor without being seen, because if I couldn't, this was going to get messy. Luckily it didn't get messy. A straight fall turned the first guard into a puddle and cleared my escape route. It also gave me an entrance into the building. All I had to do now was start distracting and quietly finagling my way through the building itself. The problem was going to be the green wire jack. In order to get things working, I'd have to get upstairs and cross-link that. That was going to be the problem. I had no way now of getting things up and running, with everything on the wrong side of a locked door. It was probably a bad idea to knock that guard into the sewer in the first place, but hey, some things you couldn't undo. Luckily, that one you could. I did figure, however, that before I offer a prayer to the great god Murphy, I could at least try going through the window and taking down the enforcer behind me. It went about as you'd expect. Trying to get through the plate glass window without setting it off turned out to be a mistake. That wasn't going to open itself. Unfortunately, that was going to be intended as a quick exit, not a quick entrance. With that in mind, I decided to leave the first guard in place. If I set the doors correctly, then he'd probably be able to give me an opening. But I still had to get to a stairwell somehow, and that meant getting past the guards. I dropped down behind the guard this time, being careful to keep things discreet. The alarm was my first concern. If I could cross-link that, it might give me some options, but the other way to do it, of course, would be to take the elevator down to the ground floor, and then start playing with the light switches there on the red circuit. This would be easy enough, but I'd have to find a way to take out the professional. Happily, the enforcer didn't think to check in the lift when he came by. Cross-linking the detection arch gave me a way in. I had to be careful at this point, however, because the professional had already opened up. So, with both doors rigged to open, I took the lifts back upstairs. Then remembered that I probably needed to take the lifts downstairs again in order to get everything opened up properly. Unlink one door, trigger a second. That way, at least when I walked through the arch, the professional wasn't going to see me and put a bullet straight through my skull. Then I realised the other mistake I'd made. I should have used the light switch instead. By this point, the crosslink resembled Mum's spaghetti, although perhaps less likely to end up all over my jumper. Not that I'm saying anything bad about Mum's spaghetti, but it just, well, let's just say it featured on at least one murder mystery. As I sucked on the second bullet, I realised I'd have had to shoot, or at least knock down one other guard. The great detective gods must have been in a good mood, giving me another option and another chance. This time I decided to puddle the guard as per the first plan, and with him leaking into the sidewalk, it was now easier to clear into the lower levels. As I rode the elevator, suppressing a strange sense of deja vu, I considered how pointless this all was. Rook didn't have a prototype to steal, and let's face it, Gessler was just being set up for a double cross whether he knew it or not. The plan so far was working. I had my end to the building, and I could wirejack the yellow circuit. If I was in the mood, I could do it without taking out the professional, but I decided at this point I'd sucked enough bullets for a single round. And then I decided to make sure he didn't wake up. They were going to have to clean the carpets in the morning, but I figured, hey, better that than explaining to your boss why your rep didn't work. The yellow circuits now gave me some options. All I had to do was figure out how to use them. And in this case it meant somehow tripping a door. I broke the circuit to the alarm, since that would just get the enforcer's attention in nothing flat. I figured if I was quick, I could ride the elevator down, trip the camera field, and then ride the elevator back up before the mook turned around and put another 9mm through my skull. Maybe I was wrong, maybe I was right. I was about to find out one way or the other. Some careful tiptoeing gave me an option, and then a mad dash to the elevator. Luckily the guy was too intent on his earpiece, or he just couldn't hear what was going on 5 yards behind him. I didn't really care which. Riding the stairs up and taking the prototype was easy, but there was just this tempting option to head back in through the enforcer and try to steal something. I figured it wasn't worth it. There was only one laptop worth grabbing, and that was on the green circuit. Trying to break that would be an interesting exercise in futility. I had the objective and, well, there wasn't any point in staying around. TX Fabrications could keep their secrets for a bit. I needed to keep things neat and effective. Gessler was happy enough to get the prototype and decided not to let him in on the option. Get off at Central, switch bags, easy way to make a trade. I was firmly in Rook's camp at this point. Gessler was going to discover sooner or later that that prototype wasn't one of Rook's designs. He knew their methodology as well as I did. But the trackers in a building they didn't know belonged to Intex. Turned out they had a few shady facilities. Needless to say, we were going in to get the prototype back and nick anything else. Hopefully they were storing all their secrets in the same building, but she also wanted me to check out a few laptops as well. And that was where the fun started. An easy option here for an inn. Going over the top would just get me shot because of the guard outside. I hoped he was getting extra overtime for standing out, but at least it wasn't raining. At this point it was a simple job. Reset one of the triggers, and then hope the guards lined their patrol paths up correctly so I could take this mook out without causing too much difficulties. There was a long pause, and no, they hadn't lined their patrol paths up correctly. I muttered a curse. That was going to be a little more interesting than we thought. Hopefully the patrols were going to drag far and out of sync that it wasn't going to be an issue. Turned out, no such luck. I'd have to cross-link and then de-cross-link to get the door open and make sure it stayed that way. And with the link broken, I had to ensure that this mook wasn't going to drop on me. Luckily, he wasn't in the mood for any fresh air, so that gave me a few options regarding timing. Doing it non-lethal seemed like a bad idea. I could probably sneak past him up to the first floor, but the second guard would get me immediately. I decided to play it safe. Not very gentlemanly, but at least it left him unconscious as opposed to coughing something vital up onto the carpet. Another punch took out the second guard and gave me open access to the wire jack for the blue circuits. With this done, it was easy enough to figure out how to do these things. All I had to do was head upstairs and then rig the doors. It was tempting just to clobber that guy. And I have to admit, I maybe had a little bit of a vindictive streak at this point. It had been a long night and, well, the cheap rock gut booze had caused its own set of problems. The guard was too busy sleeping off his headache, so hopefully he wouldn't cause me any more difficulties. Wasn't strictly necessary to take him out, but hey, I wasn't necessarily playing for a neat and clean run at this stage. I also needed to take out the upper sentry's line of sight. With him blinded and wondering why the door had shut in his face, I opened the door to my own building and decided to get on with it. There weren't too many circuits I could exploit at this stage. The only one of note was the red circuit to the lights, and also the red circuit to the power supply, but I was going to have to find a way of baiting the enforcer over there to get it done. I thought I'd set that up correctly. Turned out I hadn't. Maybe things were just affecting my brain. With the lights on the upper level shut down, I then realised I'd repeated my mistake. I broke the crosslink and headed back through the arch. A double trip of the camera gave me access to the building, but I was going to have to find a way past this guard anyway. Easy enough to do, of course. All I had to do was rig the camera to open the door and hope it opened up into his face. The other option, of course, yeah, that worked. The plan was a solid one. It got the guard patrolling, and I now had my actions clear to take out Mr. Enforcer on the first floor. I had to wait, however. He'd have to walk past that power socket and then I'd have to step through the arch. Found myself cursing the fact I hadn't brought a hip flask with me, but then booze and a job never mixed too well. For that matter, neither does electricity and a job, as the Enforcer's twitching body slid to the floor. Luckily that camera hadn't been wired to anything, or the professional would have nailed me without hesitation. I had what I came for. The green circuit was open, but the laptop caught my interest. Fitz and Carl were still having their argument. Turned out there was no line about making guns, just selling them. Fritz, of course, knew that he had to take down Rook somehow, but there was no easy way to do it. At this stage I needed an access to the elevator. I also needed to find a way of baiting the professional's attention over, so I rigged the camera up to trigger the call button. That should get him looking the other way. And I just hoped it was going to be enough. Luckily it was. Another switch would do the trick, and I just hoped that he wouldn't have the sense to turn around to face the open door, because if he got this right, I was going to be definitely swallowing another chunk of lead. He didn't get time. A dive through the camera field opened the door and gave me what I was looking for. Nabbing both prototypes gave me an out, and at this stage all I had to do was break the final circuit and then rewire the doors to let me out. A simple job. And for once I hadn't been shot, maimed, beaten, stabbed or betrayed. But I had a feeling that last one was just coming around the corner. The fake prototype and something else were in my possession. Rook wanted me to repeat a dead drop, and I found myself cursing amateurs. The whole point of a dead drop is that you don't repeat it. I figured this was going to be an easy betrayal, and it turned out that, yeah, Gessler hadn't taken too long to figure out who'd sold him down the river. I very quickly upgraded the bullfrog trousers. I was going to need some problems, and more to the point, some problems solved. While I was looking at my options on the upgrades menu, I had $1,500 to spend. The revolver was an opportunity, illegal as they came, of course, with the handgun ban, but some other options came into play as well, such as the Hush Cracker and the Prank Spasm. The thought occurred that they were better options for stealth, or even better, if I took the long shot, I could demonstrate just why certain handguns had been banned in the city. The long shot and the Hush Cracker turned out to be the two best purchases, and then there was nothing to do but go face Gessler's wrath. Turned out he wasn't too happy. I don't know how he'd figured out that I was in the loop on the theft, but clearly he had, probably because only about 3 people knew about the prototype. With that done, all that was left to do was get on with the Broad Collins. But first, I was out of bourbon, and the store was just down the corner.